Alright, where did I leave off? Fish, feeding them fish. So I think I covered about thiaminase, and it's bad to feed them fish like shiners and minnows, which contain this. You're going to want to spend the extra money to get things like guppies and your platies, swordtails, mollies, whatever. And you're looking at, depending on the size of fish you get, you're looking at feeding them, 3 to 4 of these fish 2 to 3 times a week if you have a baby. Once you hit a year old, you can go down to, appropriate size meal once a week. And then, of course, when they're adult, you can go down to every other week. Have an appropriate size meal. But fish, you're probably going to need more than one of them to make an appropriate size meal. If you have no idea what an appropriate size meal is, please consult a beginner's care guide to any kind of snake species out there. So they can definitely be very, very tricky with the feeding. I know there's a lot of people that have ribbon snakes or garter snakes, and they feed their garter snakes, they thaw out little strips of salmon or trout, and they give that to them, just wiggle in front of them, and they take it. These guys, not going to do it. So not going to do it. I tried that. I even tried just freezing some of his guppies and, unthawing them out later so that I could buy guppies in bulk, and then just unthaw them and throw them in his bowl, and nope. It didn't move like a fish. It didn't matter if it smelled like a fish, but it didn't matter if it smelled like fish. If it didn't move like a fish, he didn't want it. So fish fillet didn't work out too well. I haven't talked to anybody that's had any success with fish fillet. Most people are feeding them live fish or have gotten them switched over. When I bought him, he was just slowly in the process of being switched over from fish to rodents. He is fully switched over to frozen thawed rodents now. Yay! It took a lot of tips and tricks and little things that I've learned from, having my other snakes, and from researching and from talking to other snake owners to be able to do that. It took a lot of time and a lot of patience. I gotta tell you, you gotta go at the snake's pace. It's like a toddler. Can't speed it up. There's really no way to speed it up. And sometimes they're just gonna look at you and go, nope, I'm not stupid. I'm not fooled. I don't want that. If it doesn't quack like a duck and it doesn't move like a duck, it's apparently not a duck to them. I don't know. Tricky. They're tricky, especially if you want them on rodents. And, if you find one from a breeder that's already switched to rodents, guess what? You're going to pay extra money for that. You're going to pay extra money for that than you would one that's not even been switched. So I just switch them over. I had to scent live pinky mice. Okay? And what this entailed was giving a live baby mouse a bath in water from one of my fish tanks. You can also do it by taking said food item that they like to eat, kill it, and then rubbing the slimy, freshly you killed it yourself guppy or whatever along this mouse's body, and it's disgusting and icky, and the mouse squirms. Luckily it can't bite you yet if it's a pinky, but once you get past that fuzzy stage, yeah, you're gonna get bit. So that's something to look forward to. And then, from there I had to get him into getting used to eating the mice without having to scent them with fish, and then from there it was stunning the prey or freshly killing the mice. It's horrible, whacking a baby squeaking mouse's head across the corner of a table. Sometimes as a snake owner, that's what you need to do for your pet's health. And I didn't like it, I didn't enjoy it, but I did what I needed to for my snake. And you may have to do something like that with any snake if you buy it really young. But rhino rat snakes can be exceptionally picky and exceptionally stubborn when it comes to food, and especially to changing the types of food that they're used to. He is now on frozen thawed. It took tease feeding. Lots of tease feeding. You can watch as many videos as you want, but until you've actually tease fed a snake yourself, you know nothing. Sorry guys. You can learn a lot, tips and tricks, but actually performing the action and having that hands-on experience of tease feeding an animal is, it's a lot. It's a lot. I think we have a scale out of place, buddy. And, you know, it's a lot of work. And part of tease feeding is not only knowing how to appropriately move around this dead mouse or whatever, trying to mimic the movements of a live mouse, but it's also a lot of reading your snake's behavior, reading the way they move their head, the way they flick their tongue, the way they move away or towards from the food. So you need to have a basic understanding of snake body language, you know, to successfully tease feed and to realize, you know, is this animal ready for the next step and getting them switched over or not. It's a very long process, and it definitely takes experience knowing, you know, basic snake body language and movement. And along with that, I said, you know, I wanted to make sure he knew I wasn't food when I went into the cage. I didn't want to spook him. I, you know, mentioned briefly that Rhino rat snakes can be very nippy. Throughout YouTube, they have quite a reputation for being nippy little devils, you know, and the young ones especially, because, I mean, for any baby snake in their world, everything is out to get them. I mean, even ants in the wild are out to kill and eat a baby snake. Usually, you know, it's going to be a bunch of ants in a swarm, and it's going to be one that's kind of sick already. But point is, in their world, in their mind's eye, everything is out to get them when they're very young. And then when they get bigger, you know, they get wiser, and, you know, they learn the habits that you set forth for them, and the things aren't so scary anymore. But even a lot of old ones, you know, older ones, they can be nippy. They can be timid. They can be shy. They can get, not necessarily, well, yeah, kind of aggressive, kind of territorial. You know, they can just get grumpy with you. They don't want to be bothered, and they just basically are trying to tell you to piss off. So, I mean, handle taming one of these guys, you can see he's very sweet. He's a very good boy. Aren't you? Yeah, he's a very good boy. See, I'm putting him near my face, which means I trust him. And he wasn't that bad from the start. He really wasn't. I handled every single one of his siblings until I found the tamest one with the most speckling. So, I mean, it wasn't bad from the get-go, but, you know, they can be very, very nippy, and I've seen a lot that are very nippy, and you gotta know how to read their body language and react accordingly, and just take small baby steppies at their pace to tame them down to this, and, you know, get them used to a routine or whatever you do, get them used to your smell, the look of your hand, or the way you go in at them, whatever. You know, so this is, you don't want to start with something nippy if you don't have much experience with snakes and handling them and taming them and reading their body language. So that's another thing that makes them not good for beginners. That doesn't make them a good, you know, early stage snake there. But they're gorgeous. They're gorgeous. You can see he's very active. He's just crawling around. You might be able to notice that little horn, that little tip in the end of his nose. That's their namesake. Why they're called rhino rats, because that little horn. And that little horn is just a pile of scales that's piled up on their nose. It's flexible. It's very flexible, and I mean, he smushes it against the glass like a child in a candy store. And it doesn't break. However, it is fragile. It can be broken. I've seen plenty that have had their horns broken off, especially from live prey. You know, they go after a mouse, they get it wrong, the mouse switches back and it just claws the horn right off their nose. Which is part of the reason why I switched him to frozen thawed, is because it's safer. You know, it's very much so on the dead side. It can't harm him, it can't scar him, it can't take that horn off. You know, plus you're freezing it, which means you're killing any kind of parasite that rodent possibly had before you got it. And you can buy it in bulk. Really cheap to buy frozen feeders in bulk. They don't take up nearly as much space as trying to keep a bunch of live ones. I'll tell you that. So it's cheaper, more convenient, less space. You don't have to make the, you know, weekly trip to the pet store for food and pray to God that your pet shop has the appropriate size and number of feeder items that you need, because you don't want a little fast-growing youngster skipping a meal. It's not good for them. But I mean, they're just crazy, like, appearance, that horn that scientists don't know why they have, and the fact that they're so active and they don't get huge, you know, they make for a very good display sink because they are semi-arboreal. They'll spend a lot of time just cruising around the cage and, you know, just hanging out under, you know, overhanging leaves or something out in the open where you can see them. They aren't going to hunker down in a hide all day long, the same as you'd expect of a ball python or a corn snake. They're going to be out, active, and just easier to see most of the time. Wonderful display animals because of that. It's pretty much what he's going to be. You do have an upturned scale. When did you do that? Yeah. That's it. See, look at all this stuff he lets me do with him. And you can see just his scales on his belly are not in the greatest shape. He definitely has some scales that are misshaped. Come here. He has some scales that are misshaped, misplaced. They don't overlap properly. You can actually see some of his skin underneath. So he's very delicate. I mean, as a baby, look how small he is now at a year old. Can you imagine how big he was when I brought him home when he was 3 months old? I mean, and they're skinny. He's even skinny as a twig now. And can you just see how skinny as a twig he was when I got him? I mean, he was so small and just skinny and frail looking and feeling that I thought if I just so much as sneeze in his general direction that he'd just fall apart. So you definitely got to be very ginger with them. He definitely has some genetic issues. And you know, honestly, some of these scales out of place in his belly could be partially genetic, you know, that his parents had issues like that and they passed on that, you know, that scale laying down, the scale pattern to him. Or it could just been, you know, if, you know, he had a water blister when I got him. Who knows how many other blisters or such things like that he's had throughout the couple of months that he was with the breeder that have gone away on their own, but they left a scar or they, you know, push scales away and leave some skin exposed or damage them or whatever. So preventing skin problems is very important for their long-term safety and health. Because they are arboreal and active, you want plenty of things for them to climb on. He's got tons of stuff in here to climb on. So much to climb on. So much to climb on. This here is just a silk plant. This here, this bright orange thing, this is a crate. It's just like a storage plastic locker crate, and I cut the bottom off of it so that the entire top is now open, that he can climb over the top too. And he can weave in and out of every single one of these holes and in behind it, and he does. He loves it. He spends so much time just over the plants and in and out of these holes. I don't think he'll be happy until he's convinced that he's gone through every single hole in this box. So it's lots of climbing structure, and this is just a very cheap solution for anybody. I mean, his water bowl, his white water bowl here is just the top from a Kool-Aid, you know, like a 6 pint, you know, one of the round jars of Kool-Aid, and you measure it out with the lid for how much you're making in a jug. That's all that is, and I just put some glass fish stones to weight it down.